underpinning science side in the Met Office and working with stakeholders in urban areas to translate that into information that's useful for their decision making. And it's great to be here today to talk to you about some of the work that I've been doing along with a whole host of other people within the Met Office and also with Exeter UK to take one of our pilot urban climate services that we've developed for local authorities and upscale that into our operational service, providing the information for all local authorities across the UK. So what is upscaling? So upscaling is moving from a pilot project or a prototype service and making that service repeatable or transferable to a much broader, or to other locations, to a wider audience. And this allows us to reach more people and organisations with our work. And often it's quite helpful to follow a well-planned upscaling process. And I mention this because some of my colleagues at the Met Office have created a climate services upscaling approach and toolkit, which I don't have time to go into in detail today, but I've provided a QR code so you can scan that and that'll take you to a series of web pages where there's information about the approach and you can download the toolkit. And the work that I'm presenting today was used as a case study for this upscaling approach, and it's been written up as a case study fact sheet. So again, you can go to the QR code and download it and read it in your own time. So in the UK, it's very much recognised that local authorities are key players in the national response to climate change. We've been working with local authorities for quite some time, and we've had some feedback for them as we've been developing this work, feedback from them as we've been developing this work. Everyone here knows that climate change impacts are very much felt at the local level, and our users have indicated a need for clear and authoritative information to raise awareness on the need to adapt. But the local authorities are already taking local responses to this challenge. In the UK, a lot of cities and local authorities have declared climate emergencies, which requires them to conduct a climate change risk assessment and then develop an adaptation plan. So they need ready-to-use climate information to support that adaptation planning. And there's a great emphasis being put on local governments to develop local solutions to this challenge. So so users need information to identify the priority risks and opportunities across their service areas to focus resources. So as I said, our team has been working with local governments for quite some time. This is from a poster that I presented on Monday, so I won't go into it in too much detail, but basically we've been developing a number of pilot projects with local authorities over the last 4 years. And the one I want to focus on today is the City Pack service. So what this is a set of fact sheets that provide high-level summary information for local governments about what climate change means for their city. It summarises changes in key climate variables in a fact sheet format. And this one was initially produced with Bristol City Council, and since then we've been able to offer it to just over 25 other city councils and regions across the UK. But we want to be able to scale this up to enable all local authorities in the UK to have this service. And so far, the information with the cities that we have worked with, it's been used, so Bristol used it to inform the climate adaptation strategy. It's been used as a communication and training tool, both within the governments, within the local councils, but also as a communication tool with the public as well. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over that slide. But basically, as we have been looking at how we upscale this service, our City Pack service, the Met Office also launched our climate data portal. This is our new geospatial platform where it offers a user-friendly way of viewing and downloading a range of our climate data sets in different formats. and it allows users to overlay this with their own data. And there's a QR code there if you want to go and check that out. But all of our climate data information on this is in gridded format. So there's still work that needs to be done by the users of this information to process it into something that they can use in their decision making. But the great thing about the climate data portal, the functionality of it allows us to build these bespoke hub sites on top of it, where we can take the information that's hosted on the portal and the gridded data and then transform that into information that is useful for local authorities for their decision making. So this is where our local authority climate service comes into it. So obviously as you upscale, you can't work as closely as you did before with each and every local authority as you develop the pilot service. So we didn't want to just throw the information out there at people. We needed to build additional tools and services to enhance the uptake of the service, to provide further information, to support local authorities in using the City Pack service. So we have 3 parts to the service in total. We have our Climate Projections Explorer, which I'll take you through in a second. Then we have our Local Authority Climate Report, which is our enhanced City Pack. And then we also have a Local Authority Community Site, which again I'll take you through in a second. And I just wanted to mention that we aren't developing this alone. We have been speaking to local authorities as we have been developing this service and getting their feedback and testing it with them. We've also been using our own civil contingency advisors, who are often the first port of call with the Met Office for local governments. So we've been updating. They also offer climate change training to local governments. So we've been working with them to update their training modules to include this information. We've also been working with a range of organisations who work really closely with local authorities. A number of them have developed what we call adaptation toolkits. So we have been making sure that our data aligns with what local authorities are being asked to do to assess their risks within these adaptation toolkits. And we hope to be able to work with them in the future to deliver workshops to help embed this information within their toolkits as well. So just looking at the Climate Projections Explorer, so this is the dashboard that you get when you first enter it. The local authorities can click on their own local authority boundary, and it takes them to this dashboard here, which provides a range of climate variables that are already processed to their local authority boundary, so they don't need to do any of the processing themselves. We've got changes in the likes of temperature, rainfall, and sea level rise, and the results are shown in this table format. We also have the option to view it as a graph, and we've also included more impact-based indicators as a result of user feedback. So these are different indicators that are related to impacts for health, energy, and transport. And we've got lots of accompanying information around the site and kind of describing what the indicators mean, what are about the underlying data, what we mean by global warming levels, and different things like that. Users can also view the information on a map and compare neighbouring local authorities. And there's also a button which then pulls the information from the Climate Projections Explorer and puts it into a report format, which is essentially our City Pack service. So this has been adapted to make it applicable to local authorities more generally. So each local authority can get their own climate report, and it provides information around how climate change is affecting the UK more widely. There's information on the science that goes in, that sits behind the report and the climate projections that are used. Then we have our kind of results sheets, so the summary of the information that was on the Projections Explorer. And then if it's coastal local authority, there's a page that summarises the sea level information for that area. And there's a final page that talks about the differences between mitigation, adaptation, and then also about looking at assessing your climate risk. So as I said, we wanted to be able to provide some supporting information to help local authorities be able to implement this information in their decision making. So we've developed this local authority community site, So it's essentially a web page that will host key infographics for awareness raising, and there'll be a series of case studies and also links to more to helpful resources. There's also going to be explainer videos on there to walk users through the tools. And we've also got videos of some of the cities who have had a city pack previously and how they've actually implemented that in their decision making. So I just wanted to finish up by sort of showing some of the feedback that we've had from local authorities as we've been testing this service with them. And one of them has very much said that they find real benefit to this service in reducing the processing time that they have to do with the projection themselves. Also, it provides the report element provides a tool for local authorities to communicate the information. This was one thing that the users really gave us feedback on, was to keep that fact sheet format. It was so important that they had that tool for communication. And also this tool kind of sits quite nicely between some of the more technical platforms that we have for users to download our climate information, and then our very high level summaries that we have for policymakers. So the climate data portal and the local authority climate service kind of sits nicely in between those two. In terms of next steps, so this service is still in development, but we found out in July there that it has been picked up through our third National Adaptation Programme, and the UK government is funding it for 1 year as a pilot. And we'll be continuing to receive feedback from users. So we're currently working with them at the moment to get a timeline for launching this, which we hope will be in the next 6 months. So once we do our final updates, we'll get it launched and out there. As I said, we hope to hold some regional workshops with those organisations across the UK that we've already been working with. And we hope to get some more case studies on there to show how local authorities are using this within their planning. And we will continue to monitor and evaluate the progress and how users are using this information. And this is kind of just the starting point, getting the city pack up there and upscaled. In my earlier slide, we had some other pilot services in terms of providing information on urban heat and providing information at a sub-local authority scale. So that's kind of our future visions, is to eventually have that information up there as well to upscale that too. I will leave it there and let them any questions.
Thanks, Victoria. Questions?
Yeah. Thanks, Victoria. Great presentation. Do you have a team that goes out on outreach programs to help people interpret and implement the program? You go and, I guess going around and creating these groups that you want to use in resources.
Yes, so that's effectively me. I think what we've been doing so far is we have been trying to a lot of these organisations are in the process of looking at their adaptation toolkits. They've been out for quite some time. They are in the process of doing some updates. And so we have been working with them to understand what those updates look like, how our data will feed into that. Can they signpost our information within their toolkits? We've been taking part in some workshops that they have been doing already to kind of showcase this type of information of what's coming up. We will be continuing that relationship as this launches, and as I say, we hope to do some regional workshops with them and bring the local authorities along and enable them to make use of this information.
Any more questions? Guess I can ask a question, but we're colleagues, so it's going to be a mean one as well, I suppose. So, like, what do you think there's much scope for including more sort of physics into the sort of, models that you use to make these packs? What would you like to see people like me in model development do for you?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's coming up is local authorities are different parts of their adaptation cycle. So there's ones that are just starting out and they just need the information to build that awareness around why they need to adapt. And that's kind of what the purpose is of the City Pack service. The other services that I showed there are more around kind of going into that more decision-making processes, looking at the sub-local authority scale and looking at what information we have that could enable them to kind of identify those risks and opportunities within their local authority area. And one thing that keeps coming up is kind of trying to understand the benefits of interventions. So I think in terms of the physics and if there's ways we can test different interventions for them, I think that would be a great help and information that we can get.
Okay, thanks, Victoria. Oh, we've got another one.
Yeah, I think it's a follow-on from Lewis's question, Victoria. You mentioned in the climate city packs, you have a range of indices, you've expanded those. So just for clarification, the impact indices, are they the ET side indices or are they indices that you've developed yourself? And the second question is, from what you showed there, it looked to me like it was mainly just the direct climate impacts. I'm wondering whether there's additional downstream impacts. So for example, sea level rise, is it just sea level rise? Is it impacts on coastal erosion or coastal inundation? Similarly in the environment, is it potential changes on ecological niches through bioclimatic driven changes? Or is it really focused on mainly the primary climate impacts?
So initially it is based on the primary climate impacts. The indicators up there are kind of based on loosely based on ETC CDI, but we've been, looking through the literature and also engaging with local authorities, and those thresholds that we've picked are kind of go hand in hand with some of the impacts that we see in terms of health, in terms of transport gets disrupted and energy supplies decrease. But they're all temperature based. We would like to include some rainfall based information in there eventually. But we have had feedback from users about trying to provide more on the impact side as well. So we need to speak to the Environment Agency in the UK to see how we might be able to integrate maybe some of their flood mapping, or there's other organisations that we're in conversations with at the minute to see what other impact-based data sets we can potentially host on there in the future.
Okay, thanks, Victoria. At this point, I'll draw the session to a close. So if we could have